Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Angel Live event. We're excited that you're here. The Season 1 finale of The Sacred Thread drops this Tuesday, and tonight we're taking you behind the scenes with the people who created it. All of Season 1, of course, except that finale, is streaming right now at angel.com/sacredthreadguild. So if you need to catch up before the finale drops Tuesday, tonight's the night. But here's what we have in store for tonight's show. We're going to go behind the scenes with the people who created it. We're going to bring on the host and creator of the series, Brad Gray. We're going to bring on the director, Joel Edwards, and the producer, Daniel Kiedis. We'll learn about the powerful research and theology behind the show, and we'll highlight some of the behind-the-scenes footage from the making of Season 1. And we'll close out with your questions submitted by the Angel Guild members. So, before we bring on our special guests, let's roll that trailer.
Scripture, the holy word of God. However you describe it, the Bible is without a doubt the most influential book ever written. Despite the influential power of the Bible, many people struggle to understand its complete picture because context is everything. When we read the Bible through the lenses of context, we can transport back to learn the original meaning, and in turn gives us eyes to see. For the next 7 episodes, we're going to explore the original context of the Lord's Prayer. I want to invite you on this journey of discovery with me. Together, we'll uncover the pieces of context and trace the threads woven throughout this amazing story. This is what defined what their life looked like 3,500 years ago. Because I believe that when we can understand the original context of the Bible, it changes the way we experience the Bible. And that can change everything. Join us on The Sacred Thread.
Wow, what an amazing trailer. And as you can see on screen, there are special guests. Hello, Brad, Joel, Daniel. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Great, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I just think we just jump right into my first question I have for you. If you had to just walk us through Season 1, sort of like the elevator pitch for people who might not be familiar with this series, what would you say The Sacred Thread is? And this is just open to whomever would like to answer.
Yeah, The Sacred Thread is this immersive documentary like pilgrimage through the Bible lands in order to understand what Jesus meant by the Lord's Prayer. You know, the Lord's Prayer is the most well-known prayer in human history, and it is just absolutely laced in context. And that is what we've really done with the Sacred Thread series, is that context is so much. You could say it's almost everything. I wouldn't say it's everything, but it's pretty close. And if anybody says it's not, then just quote them out of context and they'll tell you context is everything. And what we wanted to do was to be able to create this experience to help people to understand what was the original context for Jesus and his audience, what was going on from a historical perspective, the geography, cultural backgrounds, basically all the things that the writers of the Bible assumed their audience knew and therefore didn't include. And so Season 1 is 7 episodes going through each of the 7 phrases that make up the Lord's Prayer and helping people to be immersed in the places and the locations to not just better understand what did it mean for them then, but then to be able to ask different questions and draw deeper implications for what does the Lord's Prayer mean for us 2,000 years later.
No, that was great. Anything to add from the other guests?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I thought he nailed it as well.
Anything else, Joel?
I think that we all have a history and a context with the Bible. And irrespective of, where you live or how you were raised, or what you believe or don't believe now. This collection of 66 books has influence on your life.
Mm-hmm.
It affects you. It affects the government that you are living under, in the countries that you reside. It affects the moral fabric of societies, of the do's, the don'ts, what's bad, what's good. I mean, it's kind of it's such a overarchingly important topic.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about history and the interpretation and what it means to you now, you have to go back and look at, well, what did it mean to them then? It's just a part of that. It's just a part of the journey, a part of the overall story. So when Brad, brought the project to us and is like, hey, I want to do this insane project on the Bible. It's never really been done before in terms of what the format and the structure is and where we're going to go and who we're going to talk to and all those things. I think the base level of hunger for us was there as storytellers to go, wow, like we are really going to go for this and try to unpack one of the central pieces of documentation, of biography, of historical accord, and of course theology, and do it in the lens of the Lord's Prayer was really a fascinating format. We're kind of the first season is all in the Lord's Prayer, but the idea behind the show is so much bigger, and so it was an incredible project to undertake. And that's why we're going to talk about so much of it, because there's a show and a movie and a book, and it's just so much. Like the thing is just loaded, and really an incredible project to be a part of. I think Daniel and I are just privileged and honored that we got to be partners on this and to try to bring this thing to life. And finally, everyone's going to be able to see it after 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a big day.
Yeah, and honestly, us here at Angel, like we have the privilege of having it on the Angel app. Of course, we are the beneficiaries of your 7+ years of work on this. So it's just a thank you to you guys for being willing to go on this journey, because we are definitely benefiting from all that work. But I know you mentioned the Lord's Prayer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have a film currently on the Angel app labeled or called The Lord's Prayer. How does that connect to the series, or does it connect at all?
Yeah, it connects really deeply. In fact, we had originally set out to do the Sacred Thread, doing season 1 being 7 episodes on the Lord's Prayer. And along the way, Mark Burnett, of legendary fame for Shark Tank, The Voice, Survivor, saw our pilot episode and stepped in and said, how can I be part of this project? And this is something that the three of us had been working on among others, all of our teams. And he just said it'd be really great to consider doing a film first that would allow people to kind of tiptoe into context and how you all do what you do. And so the film version of this is, think of it more of like an appetizer. I mean, it's more of an abridged version where we take people through the Lord's Prayer in 80 minutes. And then season 1 of the Sacred Thread is 3.5 hours. And so it was very much, we still filmed things differently for some aspects of the film. We filmed things differently for aspects of the series. But for people who want to get kind of a smattering of what are you guys doing with the Lord's Prayer, the film is a great place to start. And then when you really want to understand the ins and outs of all the phrases and go on the full exploration, you jump into the series.
No, that's great. I love the example of an appetizer, because I think, okay, it totally clicks. I'm there. I'm like, it's right before the full course meal. And having seen parts of the series, like I think it is indeed a full course meal. It is absolutely phenomenal. I know the finale hasn't dropped on the Angel app yet, but it has, or it will soon, Tuesday, I believe. So if you have not seen the series, please join the guild, angel.com/the Sacred Thread, or Sacred Thread Guild, angel.com/Sacred Thread Guild. Sign up, become a member, and watch the series today. Next question I have for you all is for Joel and Daniel. But the question is, what was it like when Brad, when you brought this vision to evolve to your guys' production house? what was it like? Were you like, oh, this is a great idea? Did you jump right on it? Or was it something that, just tell me what was the journey like there?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I was just saying, I mean, I think there was obviously some excitement, but there was also a lot of, I would just say, reservations and respect for the subject matter. I'm like, man, we're going for the big one. What is, and it was always, I think that the vision that, Brad and his team had was really, let's do the boldest travel documentary series on the Bible that had ever been done. And that doesn't mean just setting a big goal, from a production quality or budget, or let's just go make something really big and awesome and loud, but make something that's deep and rich. And how do we take people on the visual pilgrimage into places that they will probably never travel to themselves? One of the mind-blowing stats that I came aware of during this process is that 99% of Christians will never go to the Holy Lands. So these are the most sacred, most revered, most important physical sites in the entire history and system of beliefs. And if context is almost everything and where the thing happens matters, and you can't go there. I mean, just think about that. There's a real paradigm. So to take someone there virtually, to visually take them there, but in a premium cinematic experience where they can really smell it, they can really understand the dirt and the stories that came from that dirt and happened in that dirt. That's an ambitious task. And then, the format, I think when they brought the show idea to us, the format hadn't really been developed because it didn't exist. There isn't a show that is, masterclass teaching mixed with expert interviews and bringing the experts to the physical sites and going to them in their areas of expertise and kind of gleaning from subject matter experts, and then also going back into scripture and illustrating that through animation sequences and kind of conceptual, rendering, drawing, animation. And we didn't even realize what the format was until we were like 2 years into the project. Wow. we were really kneading the dough, going like, this is going to be great when we get this thing baked, but we don't know what this thing is right now. And so it was a long process, and it went through very, very different forms of iteration. And I mean, even up until the very end, we were still kind of solving things. So,
and that was one of our initial ideas too. Is we're excited about their idea, but we talk to a lot of people that have big ideas and don't understand what it means to implement that idea, and they're not prepared for the journey. And it's easy to have a very big difference and gap between the idea of something and the reality of something, just in life in general, but especially when you're taking on something of this scale. So we were like drawn to the idea and immediately going, do they really know what they're like wanting to sign up for? And I think that vetting process and that relational growth that happens over the course of, a 7-year journey has been a beautiful thing to see, because you guys really, you had the heart to stick it out and to really, experience this in reality, not just theoretically. And that's, I think, what really has kept us all excited.
I will say that I remember in one of the early meetings, and by the way, the way we even all got introduced was extraordinarily miraculous. There was just like some crazy stuff that's backstory on how we even met Brad and the team and got our hands on the project. But I remember it was in either the first or the second kind of, all hands development, like here's what we're trying to do, and we have a script and all this. And Brad started walking us through some of the direct connections and correlations from the New Testament and the Old Testament. And these are things that, I had no idea of. And I just remember having like multiple wow, aha moments where I was like, I just had no idea that was even in there. And so for me, I'm so fascinated as a storyteller on all these different stories from different cultures and different backgrounds. But the story of Western Christian faith and the history of the 66 books of the Bible is a big one. I'm very interested in that. I'm very curious in that. I think we all are. How could you not be, to be born in this time, at least in the West? It's the fundamental, foundational documents of everything. So we were like, oh, wow. If if we don't know this and we don't see these connections, we don't see that actually how Moses and Jesus are connected and linked, and we don't understand all these little pieces of incredible, what I would call deep cuts context that our series and the film really expounds and gets into, and we were that interested in it and didn't know about that, how many other people out there are interested in this? Yeah. So as storytellers, we're like, we've seen a lot of pitches and a lot of ideas, and this is crazy fresh. And so I think there was just a hunger in that, and just willing to go along, I guess. Or like, let's get on the journey.
And Micah, you can tell too, just even in the interaction here, like we came with the idea, but we didn't come looking for a partner to just take our idea and make it happen. It was very much like, we have an idea. We know that you are uniquely gifted to put this together in ways that are way beyond anything we could conceive. And so it was very much a collaborative process of beginning with the content and saying, okay, how do we give, the end user the most amazing experience with the Word of God, both visually, cinematically, teaching wise, things that are very helpful and digestible. And so it's been a labor of love, and it's been trying to figure out how to tell the most compelling story possible, because we're already beginning with the most compelling story in human history. Yeah. How do we just unleash it in a way for people to see what has always been there? We just haven't had the eyes to see it.
No, I love that. And it warms my heart to hear that you guys, the team behind the Sacred Thread, from the very beginning, your heart was, if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. So, and I love that artistic aim, that faith and spiritual aim. It's like, we have to do this right if we're going to communicate this story. So just thank you so much for starting from there and then starting this long journey of creating this series and movie. I'd love to ask a question about the finale, which drops in the next day or so. But could you give us a little sneak peek, without spoilers, of course? What can the Angel audience expect with this final episode of season 1?
Well, with episode 7, with the season finale, everything has been building in the Lord's Prayer. And as Jesus gave the prayer 2,000 years ago, it was going somewhere. And when you get to the last line, which is, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. One of the things that we have said throughout this entire process is that the Lord's Prayer wasn't just a prayer that Jesus was teaching people to pray. It was the very prayer that was animating his life. And when Jesus is even saying, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, like Jesus went through that journey himself, notably with the temptation in the wilderness and in Gethsemane, the two main moments in Jesus's ministry where there is temptation, there is challenge, there is testing. And so in the grand finale, we are working through those moments to really pull together all of the pieces of the Lord's Prayer that we have been laying out in the previous 6 episodes to find its culmination in how Jesus culminated the prayer and really bring the entire experience to a close where people are like, I get the prayer. I know what to do with it. It's as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Let's go. And people are going to have that experience in the season finale.
No, I love that. And over the series, I could totally feel that with the crescendo, building. And just for the people watching this live stream, if you have not seen The Sacred Thread, please join the guild right now. You can go to angel.com/Sacred Thread Guild, become a member, watch the series. The finale drops in a day or two. You're not going to want to miss it. But with that being said, I would love to jump into sort of the behind the scenes. You guys were approached with this project. You're like, we're doing this. We're going to do this right. And now the production starts. So the first question in that sort of vein would be for Brad. But Brad, what was it like working with the scholars that were involved in this project? How did you find them and bring them in? Were they like, oh, we want to talk about this? Or was it kind of difficult finding the biblical scholars?
So when we originally wrote the season, we knew obviously what the content was going to be. And a lot of the scholars that we ended up interviewing for the series and for the film were people that I have learned from along the way. And so the couple of the scholars that we had, I had never had a conversation before. And so what was really great about how we approach this, and this is different than how a lot of documentary styles are done, is that in many cases, you set out and you do a bunch of interviews, you film a bunch of things, you get into the editing room, and then you're like, okay, so what's the story? Where we started with the story, going, we're going to take you through the Lord's Prayer. This is going to be the arc and the trajectory of the season and the episodes. And so what was really great is that many times you don't get our top-notch scholars who will say yes to a documentary series because they don't know where it's going to land. And so what we were able to do was to basically say, here are the story beats. Here's what this episode is going to do. And they were able to look at it and go, okay, this is, historic Christian Orthodox faith. This is legitimate theology. This is, something that they could get behind. And so it was actually really easy to get the scholars because we had already done a tremendous amount of work leading into those conversations. And then additionally, a lot of these scholars are my friends. We've studied together. We've done conferences together. We've been in the Middle East together. And just because of the world that I have been in for the last 16 years in particular of leading study trips around the globe, the context community is pretty well known. And so reputations people already have, people already know kind of what you're up to. And so when we came to them with this idea of how could we create the highest quality, most immersive experience around the biblical context, the scholars were like, we're in. And so it was just a really great joy to meet a number of them that have had a significant impact on my life that I had never interacted before. And then also to have scholars who are dear friends of mine that we've been on this journey together for years, be able to do that. And there's just a warmth with the scholars that comes out. That's just a really pleasant viewing experience for the end viewer.
No, that's great. And a question for Joel and Daniel, but from a filmmaking standpoint, some people can hear documentary or they can hear, oh, we're sitting down with scholars, and it can take them back to high school or college and a professor that's droning on. And it's it doesn't sound exciting. But from a filmmaker standpoint, how are you able to use these interviews with the scholar and elevate it to make it fun and entertaining and mind-blowing at the same time?
You're challenge. You're talking about the boring talking head.
Yes, yes.
Which is, I think that filming them on location, going to the sites in the scene work in which they're speaking to. For example, Dr. Smith going to Capernaum where Peter lived. And, Peter is her big, she was speaking to Peter. She's done a whole bunch of different work. But in the show, her whole thesis was around Peter and forgiveness. And so how incredible is it to sit literally right outside of his house?
Yeah.
And so not only does that set the stage for a viewer to be way more engaged because you're not just in, a random backdrop kind of boring, lighting setup, but it's a real conversation. So the fact that, Brad is discussing these topics with him from a filmmaking perspective is a really organic mechanic. You've got a conversation. And you're listening into a conversation with two Bible scholars and two experts that are unpacking a really complicated idea, but doing so conversationally. And that makes all the difference. That's not the high school lecturer talking head just throwing a bunch of words at you that you don't understand. It's very conversational. Yeah. So I think that those two things really, really help. And
I think a testament, to Joel and our visual effects team too, because there's some dynamics where we're able to go within the world in the middle of the interview or in the middle of a conversation and unpack and explore things visually in a way that you just wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And it brings a depth to the subject matter when you're not just stuck on one conversation, but you're able to visualize that conversation dramatically, in world building ways. And I think our team's done a phenomenal job just leaning in and imagining what are some unique visual ways that we can represent this concept or this thing that might otherwise be pretty abstract and to make it more concrete.
Yeah. I will say though, the logistics, you said, is it challenging? And the answer is 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, to orchestrate getting all of them overseas to all these different countries, we're across the Middle East, in Europe,
pandemic.
Yeah. War Zone. I mean, it was we had, I don't know how many different flights were booked and with refundable tickets. I mean, it was like Tetris and chess all at the same time, trying to figure out how to hack this thing. So you guys don't need to worry about that. You just get to watch
Exactly.
and enjoy it.
We're the beneficiaries of all that hard work. Thank you so much. But I love what you guys were mentioning about the added layer of having the scholars at the locations that you guys were talking about. And it very much keeps the audience engaged with it actually being right there. Just a question about the locations. Just very quickly, I would love to hear from each of you. What location stood out specifically to you during the creation of this project? And then I'll just let whomever wants to start, just please.
I'll jump in with one real fast, because I think for me, broad strokes, I had a tendency, as I think many people do, to read the Bible as if it's all flat, that everything's Kansas, in my mind. And Jesus is born on flat, like everything is just, I don't know, I don't have any sense of topography in terms of how I read the Bible. And then you go to a place like Nazareth and you realize it's hilly like San Francisco. You're like, wait, I never read that. And I didn't realize that. I never made that connection, with the sense of place in what I read. And so I think for all of us, there's a lot of moments where the sense of place becomes so much more real when you can feel it, which is why we love the visual pilgrimage idea of what this provides to people.
Yeah.
So I would say one of them, there's many, was just the first time I went to Nazareth and I realized, oh my gosh, this is a lot like San Francisco. It's very, very hilly, and I never had that in my radar.
Yeah, for me, having lived in the Middle East and been leading trips there for a number of years, obviously I'd been to all of these locations, with the exception of Eleusis, which is in Greece, just outside of Athens. And we talk very frankly about this in the film and the series. It's like I'm talking to Dr. Randy Smith, who is a dear friend of mine. And it was one of our logistical Tetris chess moments where we were actually trying to film about daily bread at the Ostia Harbor in Italy, just outside of Rome. And we ran into travel issues and schedules that weren't aligning. And so I'm on the phone with Randy, and Randy's like, then we should do it at Eleusis. I'll actually be in Greece at that time. And to the audience, they're going, Eleusis, I've never heard of that before. It's like one of the most spectacular sites that really speaks into the Roman context of daily bread, because when Jesus mentions daily bread, he's tapping into the Jewish context and history of God providing daily bread for 40 years in the wilderness. But that was a past context for Jesus's audience. The present context was Roman Empire. What was going on, with Rome, and how are they talking about daily bread? And it just, by the grace of God, this site of Eleusis, just outside of Athens, provided the best landscape and site to be able to tackle this. And I had never been there before. So it was just a meaningful moment to go with one of the scholars that I love and respect the most, to be able to walk through a site I've never been before and being able to just unpack daily bread for our audience to hear that in the context of the Roman Empire. That was a pretty
pretty
cool
awesome
moment.
to go anywhere you've never been before, because you're just like a kid in a candy shop. We got to go to a place in the Holy Sepulchre, which is lower levels of the Holy Sepulchre, and it could take too long to tell this story, but you got to go down to this place.
I've never been
that
there
you've
before.
never been. You're like, guys, like they don't let you down here.
Wow,
This is amazing.
It was like 3 levels, 3 basement levels deep.
Wow.
This thing has 7 countries. Is that right? I should
6 countries.
6 countries.
Yeah, Israel, Egypt, England, Jordan, Greece, and the United States.
Yeah.
I maybe said Greece twice, but there is 6 countries.
Yeah.
I did do that recently.
And specifically, Egypt is wild. It's a wild place to film, and the access in there. And I just think that I have 2 kind of answers for you. One, back to what we said at the top, like these countries and the countries they are today, but the Holy Lands that they've been for thousands of years, to physically be there and then to film in cinema quality that we did is really a stunning. It's an accomplishment, but it's kind of a miracle. I mean, some of these areas you don't film in. You just don't get that level of quality of footage in some of these areas. And so for me, it was Holy Sepulchre. I'd been to the church before. The Holy Sepulchre is in the Old City in Jerusalem. It is a huge church complex with 3 or 4 churches that are built around the site of Jesus' crucifixion and the site of his burial. And then they have a bunch of other churches, and it's been destroyed multiple times. Any history nerds out there, just go look up the Holy Sepulchre and look at how that place, even to this day, is still granted access from a Muslim family back from Saladin, I think. The family still holds the keys and allows Christians to come in. So it is the most embattled, fought over, maybe piece of real estate in the world. Because it has the tomb of Jesus and the area that he was crucified. So this is a crazy place to get into. Usually, if you are able to get there and visit it, you are in line for 3 hours.
Wow.
And the place is just wall-to-wall heads. It's just people everywhere. And you're walking, an inch at a time as you get to move through these sites. When we were there, Iran had sent a bunch of missiles and drones at Jerusalem, and they shut down everything. But the church was still open. And so we have the only footage ever recorded of the inside of the tomb shrine. It's called the Eutychal.
The Eutychal.
Yeah, the Eutychal. We're the only people that have ever got a camera in there before, is what they told us, because they normally don't allow it. But they're like, thank you for coming. You're here. Come on in. And so for me, filming in that side, I remember looking at these guys. I was like, guys, this is never going to happen again. And it's unbelievable that we're pressing our red record button right now, and that we have a camera in here. And you guys will see, in the series and in the film, I mean, you see the whole complex completely free of anyone. It's empty. That footage doesn't exist anywhere else. And so it's very, very special footage. And that site to me was just incredibly powerful.
Yeah, the reality is we could say every location we went to was that special, because it genuinely was. It was very unique to be able to experience them in that way. Brad said that off. He's like, another one of those guys you don't understand. Normally this is packed. But it's one of the things that makes us excited about the series, because it gives you the opportunity as a viewer to go to places that you otherwise would not be able to go. And by the grace of God, because of the timing of everything, to actually experience in them without the crowds and without the noise, and to kind of experience the reverence of these places.
Thank you so much for sharing. And one thing that you mentioned that I would love to just touch on really quickly. I know it's probably a difficult thing to mention quickly, but you mentioned the Iran strikes happened, one of them, when you were filming. Can you bring us into that moment? What was that like, trying to get this thing made in the middle of legitimately a war zone?
Well, that was day one of our return trip.
Yeah, we filmed the pilot episode in actually late November 2022, and we were dealing with the pandemic. Israel only opened for a few weeks. We were able to get into Egypt, but we needed to be able to get into Egypt and Israel at the same time, and it was a whole thing. And then once we got the pilot episode made and showed proof of concept for our donors and all of that, we started the process of writing the rest of the season and doing all the necessary details and preparations to be able to go. Yeah, and then it was middle of April 2024, and this had never been done in human history. I mean, Iran sent 200 drones and missiles at Israel, and that was our first full night that we were there. Like, we were waking up the next morning to go film. Our guys are up on top of our hotel in Jerusalem, filming the Iron Dome, shooting drones out of the sky. We then went down to a bunker. That's a little bit more of a wise thing to do. But we really came together in the lobby the next morning. And yes, there was a lot of discussion, and there was a lot of questions, like, this had never been done before. Was this just the beginning of a much greater escalation? And obviously families and friends and people were all concerned about us being there. But we literally, the three of us were together, and the rest of our team, but really just having this conversation and praying, God, what do you want? And we just finished our prayer time, and we just sensed God saying, I didn't fly you halfway around the world to fly you home after 2 days. Go do what I've asked you to do. And this was, later on the heels, though, but the effects of the October 7th was still, the ramifications were still cascading through the land. Not a lot of pilgrims were in the land. When you get 200 drones, most everybody else finds a plane and they get out of there. Yeah. And so when we went to these sites, it was remarkable, because despite the challenge that it caused and the concern that this could be a greater strike coming, God opened doors that have just never been opened before. I mean, the places that we got to film, the access that we were granted. People are going to see in episode 7 the old Grove of Gethsemane. I lived in Israel. I've been going there every year since 2006. I've never set foot inside, and we were granted 3 hours, and our culminating scene is taking place in another location that has never, to our knowledge, seen a cinematography camera in there. And so God used it. It was very trying, and it created a lot of additional issues while we were filming. But, the upside is the viewer's going to see these places like Capernaum, the home base for Jesus' ministry, where I get to interview Shively. We're the only ones there. We didn't paint people out of the synagogue. We are the only two walking through the synagogue. And so it was just an amazing, not only gift to us, but to the viewer, to be able to not just see these places, but to see them with nobody there, unobstructed. And to be able to really focus in on what is coming out of these scenes from a content perspective that blends together with what they're viewing, it just provides just a really beautiful, compelling experience for people.
I love that, and I think as far as like the virtual tour of the Holy Land that you guys had mentioned earlier, like how the perfect trip would be going to these sites and having them almost empty. Like that's what any pilgrim would want. And to have you guys there and have it perfectly set to where you're able to get a camera to where it's almost virtually empty is like the best. Like it's almost the best virtual trip one could take is how it just lined up, how you guys were able to film this series. And the next section, I'd love to jump quickly into our guild questions. We got a bunch of questions for the team, but before we do that, I'm going to see if I can get any spoilers out of the team here. So let's see what happens. You don't feel like you have to actually spoil anything, but I would love to know what are the plans going forward as the sacred thread continues. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, we're really excited about season 1 being completed because we very much want to get this to the world. And so there is a full translation process that is underway to be able to dub and translate season 1 and the film into the top 15 world languages spoken by half the planet, and be able to allow this to get to people that, again, it's just even Americans, 99.9% of people never get to these locations who would even want to go, let alone people around the world that have travel bans or just don't have access to the resources to be able to do this. And so very much this is going to be a globally distributed project. And we just feel really honored to be able to do that. And so that's one key piece. And the other is we are planning, God willing, to be able to do 7 seasons of The Sacred Thread or more. And so we have already kind of got the brain trust together, working on ideas for season 2. Problem is right now we have too many good ideas. There's a lot of Bible to explore. So there's 1,189 chapters in the Bible. There's enough content, but we're also just kind of looking at, what would be content that would fit really well on the heels of the Lord's Prayer, which really represents the entire biblical story in a distilled form, which is why we wanted to start with the Lord's Prayer. It's also very familiar to most people. But we're also kind of looking at the landscape and how God is raising up other creators and what they're creating, and not to, reinvent the wheel, but to figure out how are we all collectively providing this compelling content that's going to help people to better engage with the Bible, to better understand, who Jesus is, and to be able to follow him faithfully in the world today. And so the plan is to be able to do this for many years going forward.
And we've set up sacredthread.com and other resources too that allow people to go deeper in this particular subject area. And then as we continue to move on, to stay connected, as we make some of those decisions.
Yeah, and then we do have that, and especially the viewers will see at the end of episode 7, it'll say continue your journey at thesacredthread.com, and
that's great.
We've a whole behind the scenes making of. There's a ton of resources for churches and individuals to be able to go deeper. Everything is free. Parent guides to teaching your kids the Lord's Prayer, and a host of other really great pieces of content that we've collaborated with some of the best content creators on the planet to be able to help people go deeper with the content of season 1.
No, that's awesome. It's a great insight. If people have seen it and wanted to go deeper, like you were mentioning, was it thesacredthread.com or
thesacredthread.com?
Yeah, check that out, please. Angel audience, go. And if you haven't seen the series, angel.com/Sacred Thread Guild. Join the guild. Watch the series before the finale drops in the next few days. You're missing out if you have not seen this amazing series on the Angel app. But with that being said, let's jump into the guild questions. One of my favorite segments that we do over here with the Angel Live events. Let's just jump right into it. This first question, it's for you, Brad. But what phrase of the Lord's Prayer hit you most personally when creating this series?
Good question.
That is a great question.
Yeah, and it's only for Brad, apparently.
Well done, whoever asked that. It was episode 2, In the Heavens. And that's a different way for us to hear the Lord's Prayer. We often hear it, Our Father who art in heaven, or who is in heaven. And that's not wrong, but the original language is actually in the plural. It's in the heavens. And that for me, just even developing the content was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I had never picked up on that before. And going through a deep dive of just realizing that Jesus was tapping into the ancient cosmology and how people understood the world. And really for those who have seen episode 2, it's just this beautiful reminder that every day when we pray the Lord's Prayer, that we are reminded that God sits above it all. And that's a really great reminder in the midst of just the world and just the chaos that we all feel right now, that God is ultimately in control of all things, but he's not a distant God. He is a God who is near to us, and just being reminded that we go before the almighty creator and sustainer of the universe, but he's not just watching us from a distance. He's as close to us as the air we breathe, and we actually have the ability to have a relationship with God in this way. Just every morning when I say, Our Father in the heavens, it just reminds me of that moment. That was kind of a big aha for me in the development of season 1.
Wow. And just jumping into the next question for Joel and for Daniel, what was the hardest or your most favorite scene or sequence to pull off? Do you mind walking us through one of them? So we'll just go Joel first and then Daniel.
You should tell Jordan that moment.
For one B-roll shot. It almost cost
that
us
one
our
takes the
entire
cake.
team.
We can just mic drop after
Let's hear it
that.
from your perspective, though. I like that.
I mean, well, I mean that one you guys should tell that one even better. I think for me, I'm trying to think. The hardest scene, I don't know. I think honestly, the moment that stands out, it's actually not related to a scene, but it was the moment that our team all sat down, some of which that are behind the cameras in this room, all sat down together after that drone strike, and everybody made a choice to say, are we going to move forward, or are we not going to move forward? And I think that set the tone for everything that followed, because it wasn't the first challenge that we ran into. It wasn't the first hard. There were many hard scenes. And I think part of the cool thing about this is that there continued to be a way made through the challenges. And so that was maybe where I would start. But there's another
we have some ridiculous stories about food poisoning and me missing and
copping out of the hardest days. Where's Joel?
And dealing with some. I mean, what here's another fascinating thing about the Holy Lands is each of the different countries and the different people groups see the story of Jesus, the New Testament and the Old Testament books. They see them all a little differently. The words are the words, but they interpret it differently, and it means different things sometimes. And I think being culturally sensitive and understanding, like, hey, you guys are all reading the same manuscripts. The words haven't changed, but your interpretation of what it means to you and kind of the nuance, but their context, it's just kind of fascinating. Mm-hmm. And in every country, and in some cases, like in Jerusalem at the Holy Sepulchre, when there's 5 different denominations that have approval rights and have different, these are 5 different denominations in one church. Think about that. You guys think American life is complicated. It's fascinating to get plugged into that world and then to try to earnestly listen and ask the most important, deepest questions, and then listen and hear and react and try to work together. So there were lots of scenes where there was conflict, where there was difference of opinions. We're arguing over different places in the dirt. We're arguing over what it really says. What's the like arguing over the context. I think the thing that actually that I was most taken back by was here you've got Christians and Muslims and agnostics and devout Orthodox and just kind of like theist, I believe in something, like all these different people on this crew all working together. And it's kind of a picture, I think, of I think, the way we were made was like, here are all these children all working together, all kind of playing together, all trying to figure this out together, all serving a project, all serving a story. That was really impressive to me. We had, one of our guys is all of the guys, in Israel, they all have mandatory service time. But we had several of our crew that were active duty IDF working in tandem with Muslims on the same film crew working together. Now, a U.S. narrative with polarized news, and we have a lot of that here, is going to say, hey, these two people hate each other because of what's going on in the region. And they did not hate each other. They were working together. They were brothers. They were part of the same family, a part of the same group. So that really actually blew my mind. It wasn't one specific scene, but it was like, look at this mashup of all these different cultures working together. And I think we could learn a lot from that, frankly.
A lot of beautiful moments.
Yeah.
You do have to tell the story though about the shot, the sunset shot.
Yeah.
Such a, sorry, that's just.
So I know this was for you. I'll let you, because I had one viewpoint, he had another. There's a moment, you get it towards the latter part of the film, and it shows up several places in the series. And it was this was like bonus. We were filming in Wadi Rum, which is like just this most otherworld desert. It's where Dune and Rogue One, Star Wars, Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, you go down the line, The Martian, were all filmed. When they want something to look like Mars, you go to Wadi Rum in Jordan. And we had already done all the rest of our filming. At this point, we were doing a 23-day stretch in Israel and Jordan. It was our last day. And we just had this idea for a shot. And it was one of those where it took us a couple of hours to find the location. We needed the sun to be able to set. It was this silhouette shot where I come over the back of a virgin sand dune. So it means no footprints, nothing. And you're silhouetted against the sun. And it's kind of like this moment that we wanted to capture of even Abraham's journeys and just some of the challenges of being in the desert and whatnot. And we have found the location. The guys have their phones up. They know exactly where the sun is going to be. I'm behind the sand dune. I'm on a walkie-talkie, probably a good 100 yards away. The rest of the team is, down filming this long shot. And I've got the walkie-talkie in my backpack because you can't see you're not supposed to see the walkie-talkie. And off in the distance, I see like this little like dust storm. And I look over and I hear Joel saying, hey, we're going here in just a few minutes. And I'm popping my head up to make sure I'm still in the center of the shot and then backing out of the back of the dune. Well, it ends up being two drunk Bedouin who think that we have transgressed rights in Wadi Rum, and they're there to deal with it.
Oh, no.
I thought that they were drag racing in the desert, and I didn't realize it until as they are approaching our group, Joel and the team is all set up, and they slam on their brakes and almost slid in and took out our entire team.
Whoa.
And they get out, and they are livid. I mean, just full-blown, their language, swearing. We have security. They're packing. They're angry. Our security's angry. And it is just chaos. And I hear Joel saying, and we're going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I come over the back of it, and we get the most epic shot. And it almost cost our entire team. And it was another 10 minutes of screaming and de-escalation before they got it. And
Joel's as cool as a cucumber.
Oh, it was amazing. It was the most calming voice. I mean, I wasn't getting ran over, so I was okay, but I was worried for the rest of the team. And Joel's like, no, we're going.
I will say they all love each other and want to get along as long as you're not in their desert. If you're in the wrong desert, then
yeah, exactly. So that was one of many, but it's also just, what just makes the project just really unique is anybody who's put together anything significant, they'll always say that, they went through a lot in order to make something like this, and it's true. And we have at thesacredthread.com a whole host of additional behind the scenes. So if people want to go check that out, they're more than welcome to do that.
Well, thank you so much for that story. And to close tonight's show, I just kind of want to open up the microphone. Just if you had to make a final appeal to the Angel audience to watch your show, or if there's anything else that you're like, oh, I'd like to mention this last thing, just now would be the time to do so. So I'll just open up the mic to your guys' team.
Yeah, I'll say I think it's really special for the Angel audience to get this first, and for this to be exclusive to you guys. It did so well in the Guild. I think it's a 92.
Yeah,
and so that's obviously just by that review process. We look at Angel as just being such a devout, serious, crowdsourced content platform. Like, it's the give the people what they want, and I think that's how, as you guys curate all the other different programs and all the other different stories and films and shows, that obviously that this resonates. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, for me personally, as a professional day job storyteller, we've worked on so many different projects and told so many different stories, and that's kind of what we do. But this one's very special. If you have any curiosity or remotely any interest in the Bible and biblical history specifically. And I think it's a must watch, and it's really unique in that. So that would be my pitch to anyone who isn't sure if they want to watch it or not.
Yeah, I'd say too, if you grew up not understanding the Lord's Prayer, or you've heard it before and you're like, I mean, I've heard it, I'm familiar. Is there more there? What should I do about it? Just know you're not alone. A lot of people, I think, are in that boat, and this is a great way to dig in and to learn more, because it's fascinating. There's such deep waters to explore. And it's really, really a pleasure and a privilege to be able to have a show like this that we can just unpack it and kind of swim together in really, really deep waters and learn more together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that, all of the illustrations, the cinematography, everything, I mean, our teams have been just absolutely amazing at what we've been able to put together. But the beauty of the Lord's Prayer is that out of our 1,189 chapters, if you were looking for one distilled place that clearly communicates who God is, why Jesus came, and what our purpose is here on earth, it's in the Lord's Prayer. And so for people, it won't just be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's what the Sinai Desert looks like, or that's what Capernaum looks like, where Jesus did the majority of his miracles around the Sea of Galilee, or whatever. People are going to walk away going, I wasn't just mesmerized by the beauty of the cinematography or the helpful illustrations or the teaching content. You're going to walk away better understanding the biblical story and what we've all been invited into. And you're going to know, here's the role that I get to play in the unfolding story of what God wants to do in the world today.
Well, very, very, very well said. Thank you all so much for joining me, Brad, Joel, Daniel. It's been an absolute pleasure. And like I said at the top, just the Angel audience, we're so privileged to have your film and series on the platform. And with this finale now coming out in the next day or so, it's just going to get better with that final episode. But just once again, thank you so much for taking the time. For the Angel audience still watching, if you are not a member, please, angel.com/Sacred Thread Guild, sign up, become a member. Like this series in the film as well, if you just want to start with the film, it's well worth the membership, even if it was just this film. It is so well done. The amount of care that went into this project is just remarkable. So please go there, angel.com/Sacred Thread Guild. We'll close with the trailer. But once again, thank you guys so much for taking the time, and have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Scripture, the holy word of God. However you describe it, the Bible is without a doubt the most influential book ever written. Despite the influential power of the Bible, Many people struggle to understand its complete picture because context is everything. When we read the Bible through the lenses of context, we can transport back to learn the original meaning, and in turn gives us eyes to see. For the next 7 episodes, we're going to explore the original context of the Lord's Prayer. I want to invite you on this journey of discovery with me. Together, we'll uncover the pieces of context and trace the threads woven throughout this amazing story. This is what defined what their life looked like 3,500 years ago. Because I believe that when we can understand the original context of the Bible, it changes the way we experience the Bible. And that can change everything. Join us on The Sacred Thread.